Hi, and welcome to Esther's Gardening Adventures. I'm Esther, and today I'm going to talk about what herbs and medicinal plants I'm planning to grow in my garden this year, or at least grow seedlings of that hopefully I can cram into my garden this year, because I think I'm going to be growing way more than I have space for, but that's a fun challenge to have. Before I go into the list, let me mention that real quick that I'm going to be talking about something called winter sowing, and at the end of this video I'm going to show myself winter sowing a couple of these varieties. And when I'm doing that, I'm basically using milk jugs as mini greenhouses to grow my seedlings outdoors in the winter and spring, instead of growing those same plants as seedlings indoors under grow lights. So let's get to the list. I'm definitely expanding from what I grew last year, which is about half of this amount. And the nice thing about herbs is some of them, they do take up a lot of space, but a lot of them you can tuck little bits here and there in your garden. And you can also, a lot of them will grow really well in containers. And so I just feel like for my limited experience thus far growing these things is that herbs are a great option to have a lot of variety in your garden when you don't have a lot of space and you're really craving the experience of variety, which I tend to crave a lot. I'm going to start off with the ones that are not your common sort of herbs that you use in the kitchen all the time. I'm going to start off with the ones that have more medicinal value. And the first one, I really enjoyed growing these last year. I bought some of them, and I think I grew some of them from seed as well. Calendula. These are a flower. The ones I had were kind of a dwarf version. I've seen that they can potentially be taller, but they're a beautiful like yellow, sometimes a little bit orange flower. You can get different varieties, but I think the medicinal ones are the orange and yellow ones. And you basically harvest the flowers when they're still relatively young. You dry them, and then you can make calendula oil, or you can use them in bath mixes or other things. And from what I understand of the flower is that it has healing properties for the skin, so it both helps the skin heal and regenerate, and that's why you'll see it in so many lotions at like your local co-op or health food store. They're just a really great flower to have, and I actually have, if you watch my video of how I'm reusing jugs, you'll actually see that I have a little jar of calendula oil that I keep next to the bathtub that I use sometimes when my skin's feeling particularly dry. I'll use it in my bath water, and my skin will feel so good for several days. All right, the next one is chamomile. Now I'm going to be growing. I actually realized that these seeds haven't arrived, but I'm actually going to be growing, I think it's called Roman dwarf chamomile, that I've decided to grow under my Japanese maple tree as sort of a carpet instead of as an alternative to putting down mulch. To kind of make it look more organized, but also be beneficial to insects. But I also want to grow regular medicinal chamomile because I really haven't researched whether the other one can be used just as well as this one. And some of my plants from last year are still in containers and still look like they've survived the winter. So I may be just growing out what I already have. But I'm definitely looking forward to having lots of chamomile for tea. Calming chamomile tea, which I still am using up last year's batch. Then this is one I really enjoy the taste of, but it also has calming properties. And actually, I think this one is can help lift your mood some. It's lemon balm. And when you rub the leaves, it just smells so lemony. And I think it's in the mint family. And then one that is absolutely in the mint family is peppermint. And that's one I'm going to grow this year as well. The next group of herbs that I'm growing is, last year I grew 2 types of basil, and I just loved them. I grew, and I'm going to grow them again. I grew purple basil, which was a free herb that I got from Baker Creek, and I actually saved my own. I'm not going to use this packet. I saved my own seeds. They're actually hanging by the back door. The whole bunch of herbs are hanging by the back door, and I'm going to harvest the seeds from that and see if they grow. I have this as a backup option. But that's one kind of basil, and it tastes about the same. It's a little different, but not hugely different than a regular basil. Then I'm also going to grow the other 2 that I did last year, and then there's 2 new ones. Thai basil, which if you love Asian dishes, especially Thai dishes, Thai basil is amazing. And it's one of the few basils that actually you can grow and not worry about if it goes to flower. It still tastes good if it flowers. In fact, you can use the flowers in your cooking. So I love Thai basil because it's just less maintenance. You don't have to trim it as often as you do regular basil. Then there is the Genovese, the Italian basil, right? This is the standard soft-petaled or soft-leaved basil that bruises really easy, but just is amazing with on a toast with a slice of tomato and a little olive oil and salt and pepper. Oh, man, I really can't wait till I have those again. And then these are the two I'm adding this year. I'm adding herb basil lemon basil. This is from the Rusted Garden, and I'm really looking forward to trying these. I love citrusy flavored things, and so for me, that's a win. And then this is one that I just couldn't help but get. This is from Mary's Heirloom Seeds, and I had to tape it down because the seeds are starting to come out, but it is sweet basil large leaf. And I love basil, and large leaf just sounds like twice as good as the regular size. So I'm looking forward to trying these. I'm probably going to grow them all together in a planter, but last year I spaced the basil around my tomato plants in my square foot garden, and it's supposed to help actually improve the flavor of tomatoes. So I'm going to do that again this year in addition to the garlic that I already have around the border. All right, so for the next set, I have sage that has so far overwintered okay. I don't know why the light is changing so much. Let me stop it. I have sage already growing as a perennial, and it's doing great. But I bought broadleaf sage this year, and I think I mentioned this in another video that I'm looking forward to growing. Then this one, last year I grew regular dill, but this year I'm going to grow, this is from the dollar store, I'm going to grow Long Island Mammoth basil, dill, because one of the great things about this, my grandma always, when she made like her pickled green beans or regular pickles, she always liked to use the flower heads of dill. And these supposedly produce really nice large flower heads that are great for pickling. So I'm looking forward to having these this year. And I'm thinking of planting them in the ground and kind of letting them self-seed and having them for a long time if they will do it. Another one that I bought the packet for because I'm not sure if I preserved the seeds quite right because I threw them out in the shed and didn't store them in a safe, nice, dry place. And it's quite possible the mice might have eaten all the seeds. So I bought a packet of holy basil, Tulsi holy basil. This is it's not really a basil, but it is an herb that in Indian cultures is very revered, and it does provide all kinds of medicinal values. I don't remember all of them, but I love to put some of it in my tea when I'm making a chamomile, lemon balm, mint tea. I throw some of this in, and it's a really neat flavor. And then for the more standard, of course, I've gone through some standard kitchen ones, but I'm going to grow both because I love both of them for different reasons. I'm going to grow both curly and flat leaf parsley. I can't decide among them. I prefer the flat leaf parsley like when I'm sauteing it or something like that, but I love the curly parsley in a fresh salad mix or something like that, or like to decorate a plate, not 1980s style, but like on top of fish or something when I'm plating up. So I'm looking forward to having both of these guys. Here's one that I don't have any cats. Can you guess what I'm going to say? Catnip. I don't have any cats, and I really hope this doesn't draw them to the backyard or the front yard, wherever I put it. But I've heard that actually the flowers from catnip really attract pollinators. And I think there's something called catnip tea, which I need to research more about. If you know anything about it, please comment and let me know the value. I think it does have some value, and it is in the mint family, so I'm probably going to have to grow it in a container unless I want to do high maintenance on them, because mint family plants love to spread, I've heard. All right, 2 to go. Cilantro. I can never have enough cilantro. And in a shaded area, it does pretty well on not bolting. It definitely bolts when it starts getting super hot. But then again, if I just keep planting it, I tend to get enough of the shoots that I can still have some cilantro all year round. It's just the plant doesn't last forever. But I have so many seeds, that's not an issue. So definitely growing some cilantro this year. And then this is not a medicinal value, but it's in my pack because it's just great for pollinators, and it's bee balm, which was another free gift from Baker Creek last year, and the bees really did love it. And it's these beautiful little plants with sort of like purple little flowers that stick out in a circular shape, that just the pollinators really loved, and it's just a pretty flower in general. And then this one, some people in my area have said is a real problem if it gets wild, just like any other mint plant, but shiso leaves. This is a delicacy in Japanese cooking, and I love Japanese recipes. And one of my favorite recipes I had at this restaurant years ago that's since closed down in DC was a sushi roll that had shiso leaves in them. And it's sort of it has been a while since I've had any leaves, but it's sort of a basil-y, peppery, minty, I think, flavor. If anybody else has had any lately, tell me. The leaves are a little, not quite as tender as like your basil. They're more like a little tougher than a mint leaf, I'd say, but they're so delicious, and they add a really unusual, unique flavor to fresh Japanese dishes that I really recommend you try one sometime. If you ever see one at Asian market, get a little pack and just eat them. I think you can also deep fry them, I read somewhere. But all right, so that's it for the list, and I've already made out my labels. Now I'm going to go winter sow some of these in jugs and put them outside, and I will let you see me do a few of them as I traditionally do. So let's get going. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button. And if you aren't already a subscriber, please consider doing so. And otherwise, I will see you next time.